What if one unexpected conversation exposed something no one was supposed to notice? Because right now, people are reacting to what Joe Rogan said about Erika and how it connects back to Charlie Kirk. At first, it sounded like a normal discussion, nothing dramatic. But then something changed. A detail slipped in that made people stop, rewind, watch again. And this is where it gets strange. Because the more people listened, the more it felt like something deeper was being revealed without being said directly. And if that's true, then why did Erika react the way she did? To understand why this moment is blowing up, you have to look at how unexpected it was. Because when Joe Rogan talks, people expect long-form conversation, open-ended, exploratory, not targeted, not personal. And that's exactly why this caught attention. At first, the discussion wasn't even about Erika. It started broader about influence, networks, and how certain people rise quickly within specific circles. The kind of topic that feels general until it suddenly isn't. But then something changed. Joe brought up a connection, not loudly, not as a claim, just as a detail. And that detail pointed back to Charlie Kirk. And this is where it gets strange, because the way he mentioned it didn't sound like speculation. It sounded like something he had already thought about, something he was connecting in real time. And once that connection was made, everything shifted. Because now, people weren't just listening. They were analyzing, trying to understand what exactly he was implying and why he brought it up the way he did. But here's the problem. He didn't explain it fully. No deep breakdown. No clear conclusion. Just enough to raise questions. And those questions, they spread fast. Because now, it wasn't just about what Joe said. It was about what he didn't say. And once that gap opened, people started filling it. Connecting Erika's name back to Charlie. Looking at past moments. Trying to figure out what exactly that connection meant. And then, Erika reacted. And that's when everything escalated. Because her reaction didn't calm anything down. It made people look even closer. And once that happened, the story stopped being casual and started feeling serious. It happened in the middle of what felt like a completely normal conversation. No build-up, no dramatic shift, just another moment on the show. Joe Rogan was talking about influence, how certain people seem to rise faster than others, how connections can quietly shape visibility without ever being obvious. At first, it sounded like something he said 100 times before. General, observational, easy to agree with. But then something changed. He paused, not for long, just enough to signal that what he was about to say mattered. And then he mentioned Erika, not as the main topic, not as a headline, just placed her into the conversation. And that's where everything shifted. Because the way he said it didn't sound random. It sounded like a connection. And this is where it gets strange. He didn't go into detail. He didn't explain exactly how or why. He just tied her name briefly to Charlie Kirk, and then moved on, like it was obvious, like it didn't need explanation. But here's the problem. For everyone watching, it absolutely did. Because now, that one moment raised a chain of questions. What kind of connection? How direct? How influential? And why bring it up like that? And it doesn't stop there. Within minutes, people clipped that exact segment. Just the moment where Erika's name appeared. Just the part where Charlie was mentioned. And suddenly, that small piece of the conversation became the focus. Replayed. Analyzed. Slowed down. Because people weren't just listening to what Joe said. They were trying to understand what he meant. But then something changed again. People started going back. Not just to that clip, but to past appearances. Past discussions. Moments where Erika and Charlie had been mentioned before. And weirdly, things started lining up. Not perfectly, but enough to raise eyebrows. Moments where Erika appeared closer to certain conversations than people remembered. Moments where her presence felt more connected than random. And that's when things started falling apart. Because now, the connection Joe mentioned didn't feel like a throwaway comment. It felt like a piece of a larger pattern. But here's where the tension really started building. Because Joe never clarified. He never came back to it. He never explained what he meant. He just left it there. And that silence? It made everything louder. Because now, people had to interpret it on their own. And once interpretation starts, it spreads. Fast. Because everyone sees something slightly different. Some saw it as a casual mention. Others saw it as a subtle exposure. And that division? It made the story bigger. Because now, it wasn't just about what was said. It was about what people believed was being revealed. And that's what pulled Erika directly into the center of the conversation. Not because of a full accusation, but because of a single moment, a brief connection, that suddenly felt important. And just when it seemed like the speculation couldn't go any further, something else happened. Erika responded. And that response didn't settle anything. It made everything worse. Erika didn't respond right away. And that silence? At first, people thought it would calm things down. But then something changed. The longer she didn't say anything, the more attention that clip got. Because now, it wasn't just about what Joe Rogan said. It was about whether she was going to address it. And when she finally did, it wasn't what people expected. And this is where it gets strange. Her response wasn't a full explanation. It wasn't a breakdown. It wasn't even direct. Just a short message. She said, "People love to connect things that aren't actually connected." That's it. But that one line, it changed everything. Because now, people had something to react to. But here's the problem. It didn't answer the question. It didn't explain what Joe meant. It didn't clarify the connection. It just pushed back without details. And that made the situation even more intense. Because now, people split. Some saw it as a denial, clear and simple. Others saw it as avoidance, a way to deflect without actually addressing anything. And that division, it made the story bigger. Because now, it wasn't just about the clip. It was about how her response fit into it. And it doesn't stop there. People started analyzing her wording. Not just what she said, but what she didn't say. She didn't mention Charlie Kirk. She didn't mention Joe. She didn't even reference the conversation directly. And that absence? It stood out. Because in situations like this, people expect clarity, specificity. But instead, they got something broad. And that raised more questions than it answered. And that's when things started falling apart even faster. Because now, people went back to the original clip again, rewatching it alongside her response, trying to see if they missed something, trying to understand what exactly she was pushing back against. And weirdly, the more they watched, the less clear it became. Because Joe's comment was subtle, her response was vague. And between those two things, there was a gap. And that gap, it pulled people in. Because now, the story wasn't just about a connection. It was about interpretation. What Joe meant, what Erika meant, and how those meanings might or might not align. And this is where the tension really escalated. Because now, every new comment, every repost, every breakdown added another layer. Some people started building full timelines, trying to map out Erika's proximity to Charlie over time. Others focused on Joe's tone, the way he said it, the pause before he spoke. And all of it pointed to one thing. There was more being suggested than explained. But the biggest twist? No one clarified anything. Not Joe, not Erika, not anyone connected to them. Just silence. And in a situation like this, silence doesn't end the story. It expands it. Because now, people aren't just reacting to what's there. They're reacting to what's missing. And that's what made this moment so powerful. Because the lack of clarity became the center of the conversation. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more intense, another piece surfaced. And this one didn't just raise questions. It made everything feel a lot more intentional. The next piece didn't come from Joe. And it didn't come from Erika. It came from people trying to understand the timing of everything. Because once you look at when Joe Rogan made that comment, and when Erika responded, something starts to feel off. And this is where it gets strange. The gap between the two wasn't random. It was just long enough for the clip to spread, but not long enough for it to fade. Almost like the moment had to build before it was addressed. And once people noticed that timing, they started asking a different question. Was the reaction controlled? But here's the problem. There's no way to prove that. Timing can mean everything or nothing. But when it lines up with impact, it raises question. And it doesn't stop there. People began looking at what happened around that same time. Not just the clip, not just the response, but everything else. And weirdly, there were shifts. Subtle ones. Changes in how certain conversations were being handled. Changes in what was being discussed and what wasn't. And that's when things started falling apart. Because now, it didn't feel like one isolated moment. It felt connected. Like the comment, the response, and the surrounding silence were all part of the same sequence. But then, something changed again. A longer segment from the podcast resurfaced. Not just the viral clip, the full context. And in that extended version, Joe's tone felt different. Less like a claim. More like a thought. A passing connection rather than a firm statement. And that complicated everything. Because now, people had two versions. The clipped moment, which felt sharp and intentional, and the full version, which felt more exploratory. And suddenly, the narrative split. But here's where the tension really peaked. Because even with the full context available, the reaction didn't slow down. It grew. Because people weren't just reacting to what Joe said anymore. They were reacting to how it felt. And that feeling didn't change. It still felt like something had been revealed, even if it wasn't clearly stated. And that's what made it powerful. Because perception doesn't rely on certainty. It relies on impact. And this moment had impact. But then, another detail surfaced. Someone pointed out that Joe didn't revisit the topic. Not once. No follow-up. No clarification. And that silence? It stood out. Because if something was misunderstood, why not explain it? And if it wasn't misunderstood, why leave it hanging? And that question, it spread fast. Because now, it wasn't just about Erika's reaction. It was about Joe's lack of one. And that added a whole new layer. Because now, both sides had responded by not fully responding. And that's what made everything feel incomplete. Because the story wasn't being confirmed, but it also wasn't being corrected. It was just sitting there. And that's when everything reached its peak tension. Because now, people weren't just watching a moment. They were watching a gap. A space between what was said and what was explained. And in that space, anything could exist. Any interpretation. Any conclusion. And that's what made it intense. Because once a story reaches that point, it doesn't settle. It escalates. And that's exactly what happened next. And that's when everything tipped over from curiosity into full-blown chaos. Because now, it wasn't just clips and reactions anymore. It was everywhere. Different platforms, different audiences, everyone pulling that same moment from Joe Rogan's conversation and building their own version of what it meant. And this is where it gets strange. The story didn't grow in one direction. It split. Some people were convinced Joe had casually exposed something real, that his tone, his pause, the way he brought up Charlie Kirk and Erika together, it all felt intentional. Others said the opposite, that it was just a passing thought, a connection made mid-conversation that people were overanalyzing. And both sides sounded convincing. That's what made it intense. Because now, it wasn't just confusion. It was conflict. But here's the problem. Neither side had proof. Just interpretation. Just tone. Just timing. And that's when things started falling apart even faster. Because bigger creators picked it up. Not to confirm it, but to break it down. Frame-by-frame analysis of Joe's expression. Audio breakdowns of his voice. People debating whether that pause before he spoke meant something or nothing. And suddenly, the moment became bigger than it ever was. And it doesn't stop there. Erika's response kept getting reposted alongside the clip. Her line, "People love to connect things that aren't actually connected," started getting treated like a direct counter. But even that split people. Some saw it as a denial. Others saw it as carefully avoiding specifics. And that division, It kept feeding the story, because now every new interpretation added fuel. But then, something changed. A few voices started questioning the entire situation. Not the connection, not the reaction, but the process. They asked, why does this feel bigger than what was actually said? That question hit differently, because it shifted the focus again, from the content to the reaction around it. And once that question started spreading, the tone changed. Because now, people weren't just analyzing Joe or Erika, they were analyzing the narrative itself, how it formed, how it spread, and why it felt so convincing. And that's when the tension peaked. Because now, two things were happening at the same time. The story was growing, and the story was being questioned. And when those two forces collide, things get unstable. But the biggest twist? Still no clarification. Not from Joe. Not from Erika. Nothing to settle it. And that silence? It became the loudest part of the story. Because now, it wasn't just about what was said. It was about what wasn't. Why no one closed the loop? Why no one explained the gap? And that gap? It kept everything alive. Because as long as there's no clear answer, the story doesn't end. It evolves. And just when it felt like it couldn't get more intense, it did. Because one final piece surfaced, and this time, it didn't just add to the story. It changed how people saw the entire situation. And then, the part that changed everything finally came into focus. Not through a new clip, not through a statement, but through context, real context. Because someone went back and pulled the entire conversation from Joe Rogan's segment. Not the viral moment, not the clipped version, the full discussion. And this is where it gets strange. When you watch it all the way through, the tone feels completely different. What sounded like a sharp, revealing connection in the clip feels like a passing thought in the full version. A tangent. A moment of curiosity, not a conclusion. And suddenly, everything shifts. But here's the problem. By the time that full context surfaced, the clipped version had already taken over. Because when people first saw that moment, it was isolated, clean, direct. It felt intentional, but in reality, it was part of a much longer flow of ideas. And it doesn't stop there. When people compared the two, the viral clip and the full segment, they noticed something important. The clip removed the lead-up. It removed the uncertainty. It removed the part where Joe was clearly exploring, not asserting. And without those pieces, the meaning changed. Completely. And that's the reveal. Not that Joe Rogan exposed something definitive, but that a moment of speculation was turned into something that felt like confirmation. And once that happened, everything built on top of it. Erika's reaction, the analysis, the theories, all tied to a version of the moment that wasn't complete. And if that's true, then the biggest shift isn't about Erika or Charlie. It's about how that moment was interpreted. Because once you see the full context, the exposure doesn't feel like exposure anymore. It feels like a conversation that got reshaped by how it was presented. And that changes everything. Because now, the question isn't, what was revealed? It's what did we think was revealed that wasn't actually there? When you step back and look at everything together, the clip, the reaction, the silence, and finally the full conversation, it stops being about what was exposed. It becomes about how easily meaning can shift. Because what this situation really shows isn't just about Joe Rogan, Charlie Kirk, or Erika. It's about interpretation. Think about it. Take a long conversation. Pull out one moment. Remove the uncertainty. And suddenly, it feels definitive. Even if it wasn't. And this is where it hits deeper. Our brains don't just hear information. They shape it. They fill gaps. They create conclusions even when the original moment didn't. And that's exactly what happened here. The clip felt clear. The reaction felt strong. The narrative formed fast. But the full picture was more complex, more uncertain, less dramatic. And that's what makes this so powerful. Not just what was said, but how it was transformed. Because once a moment is reframed, It doesn't matter what the original intent was. The perception takes over, and that perception becomes the story people remember. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Not just what happened in that conversation, but how quickly it became something else entirely. So now, it all comes down to one question. Did Joe actually reveal something real, or did we just turn a passing moment into something much bigger than it was? Because if one clipped sentence can reshape an entire narrative overnight, what else have we misunderstood just because it felt convincing? Drop your thoughts below. Do you think there was something deeper there, or was it all taken out of context? And if you want more deep dives like this, make sure you subscribe, because sometimes the biggest stories aren't about what was said, they're about how we chose to hear it.